and we were very marginalised in Ireland. The media gave us after the initial action, which was outrage. We got denounced by Hass, who was the guy who led the first Gulf War in the UN, and we were personally denounced by Hillary Clinton because we held up her daughter, Chelsea, on the runway. So our movement was begun in 1933 with Catholic anarchist pacifists. The Catholic Worker Movement, started by Dorothy Day, an anarchist who embraced Catholicism. At the moment, the Vatican on the verge of declaring her a saint, so she'll be the first self-identifying anarchist saint, although many of the prophets and martyrs and saints of the church were anarchists. They didn't want state power. So some of the support we received in the very long 3.5 years we're on bail, we were required to sign on at a specific police station every day for 2 years, and then they broke it down to 3 days a week. We were charged with $2.5 million criminal damage. There were two Irish-born people, Damien Moran from County Offaly, the same county my father was from, a great hurler in his day, and Deidre Clancy, who was a dub. She was from Dublin. Karen Fallon from the Irish diaspora in Scotland, and Ewan Dunlop, who was her ethnicity was Irish and South Bend Cherokee from the United States. So when the movement began in the 30s, it was a Great Depression, totalitarianism on both the right and the left, Stalinism and fascism and Nazism in Germany, Italy, and the Soviet Union. So the philosophy by the co-founder, Peter Moran, was one of personalism, taking personal responsibility. So a lot of Catholic workers went to jail for refusing the draft in World War II, and the Catholic workers were the first people to burn their draft cards publicly during the Vietnam War. And while visiting Phil Berrigan there on the left, he was a veteran of the Battle of the Bulge, which was a huge battle. He killed a lot of people and nearly got killed himself. His brother on the right there is Dan Berrigan, who went to the Jesuits at 16 and was the only one of the 6 Berrigan brothers not to go off to World War II. He was part of the Kennedy Circle, mixed in very elite circles, until one day in a suburb called Catonsville in Baltimore, Dan and Phil, a couple of other priests and a nun, and some people who just returned from missionary work in Guatemala entered a draft board. And back then they didn't have copies of the draft cards. They took hundreds of these cards in a waste paper basket and poured homemade napalm on them. Dan wrote a play called The Trial of the Catonsville Nine. Gregory Peck produced a movie. Both of them were on the front page of Time magazine in 1968. But like Julian Assange, they went from this largely went from the front page of Time to being invisible when the government got upset. So I was recruited to be Julian's bodyguard, along with my godson Ben Griffin, formerly of the British Paratroop Regiment and the SAS. The reality is that most serious resistance comes out of the military, and that's my experience. It doesn't come out of the civilian peace movement. And one guy who came to testify at our trial was Jimmy Massey, who'd shot people unarmed at checkpoints in Iraq, and to testify against the war and on our behalf. And this is a song by him, about him by Peggy Seeger.
I was born in 71, but you know my folks were far too young. My daddy didn't want his wife, he left and took his son. A tractor trailer was our home, my dad was in the cab. My daddy was the best friend a little boy could ever have. We skipped trains, we played pool, I was supposed to be at school. We hauled stuff from here to there, from there to far. I sat down in the road and cried. Daddy didn't own a gun, The cop said he was on the run. Judge said self-defense, there were no justice done. 6 years old and homeless and scared out of my skin, they put me in a foster home. I went looking for my kin. My name is Jimmy Massey, I'm a North Carolina boy. I did good in high school, my mama's pride and joy. I struggled with the softest and the hardest parts of man. My guitar was my refuge, Rambo was my friend. When I got out of high school, this boy went crazy wild. The road you got before you, son, is not the road you see. Keep it up and one day, son, you'll wake up in your grave. $10 in my baseball cap. Then he turned and walked away. Then he turned and walked away. I grew up with guns. I remember Desert Storm. We went through those Iraqis just like farmers cutting corn. I thought our victory took away the shame of Vietnam. I also thought the Marines could turn this boy into a man. Self-confidence, self-discipline, courage, honor, poise. Some boys turn into men, some men turn into boys. They check on everything you do, they tell you from the start, we're gonna be your family, your body, soul, and heart. The Marines are the very best, no one can deny. Women get that hungry look when we go walking by. Knife edge on our trousers, correct from top to toe. My wife didn't want her husband, she left and took my son. When you fire and hit the target, your senses hit the top. It's just like sex, on and on, you never want to stop. The devil man is in command and you go with the flow. They call us rolling death everywhere we go. We became barbarian warriors, princes in our pride. Lived the life of emperors, women, food, and wine. Took away my love of beauty, gave me a love of war. Turned me into a killer, that's what the training's for. But I didn't know what killing meant till I landed in Iraq. Staff Sergeant Jimmy Massey sat down in the road and cried. Some of the guys went crazy, some went crazy mean. I woke up a fall guy in someone else's dream. I went to mine, you can't do it, sir. I'm done. I used to like war movies, just can't take them now. I used to go to church. I don't think it's safe to have a world that's run by men. We want to be the only rooster running among the hens. A woman makes new life, man takes life away. I tell you, it really sucks to be a man today. But I miss my men, I just can't sleep, I'm on that single track. Born again in blood and tears, I've been to hell and back. No matter what we think they did, no matter what they done, nothing can excuse the way we took that country down. I was discharged with honor, got me a different life. Learn to be a good man, learn how to love my wife, and where we've got to go. This song for my little boy, Hunter is his name. This song is for my comrades who share the guilt and shame. I travel around this country telling what I know. I speak about how I got here and where I got to go. I speak about how I got here and where I got to go.
So in the first, they call it the Gulf War, but it was really a Gulf Massacre in 91. Because only one side had an Air Force and Navy. We broke into a different group of Catholic workers, Moana Cole, who's from New Zealand, myself from Australia, and Father Bill Strite and Sue Frankel, whose grandparents were killed at Auschwitz. And we were able to disable a B-52 bomber that was on scramble alert. And B-52s went on to drop 30% of everything that was dropped. And equivalent to 8 Hiroshimas was dropped. So the point I'd like to make is that most serious non-violent resistance, the government's ready for protests. They let people march around in empty streets till they exhaust themselves and dissipate. But most serious resistance comes from within the military. And James Connolly, who led the Citizen Army and the Easter Uprising of 1916, of course Easter changes every year with the full moon. And the exact date is April 24th. James Connolly spent 7 years in the British Army. And my great-grandfather served in the British Army during the Boer War, and then came back and joined the Irish Republican Army, like his sons, his cousins and his brothers and his nephews and nieces. So this week is an incredible juxtaposition of what the theologian Walter Wink calls the creation myths of redemptive violence of two countries. You've got the April 24th, the Irish incredibly against overwhelming odds, so they had equivalent to single-shot muskets, and the British had Gatling guns, and so they could kill the Irish without having themselves threatened. Like, my understanding of what combat is when you risk your injury to yourself by trying to kill or injure someone else. But really, dropping napalm, fuel explosives, and cluster bombs on people from a mile up in the air is really not a big risk. And that's the way the Americans fight, or the gringo Americans, because you've got South America. And that's how the Brits fight, from a distance where it's safe. So my grandfather killed a British soldier, but he did it real close. That's my Old Testament Irish republicanism. My New Testament is Dorothy Day and the Berrigans, really, who have a dynamic approach to resisting imperialism. That's it.
Addictions are afraid of break of pure faith. Under the illusion this room is safe, making confusion. Yet we all that do is chase, whether far or close, whether the craft approach the master's home, knock on the door and chant the code, color Eucharist rather gross.
And look,
in the bag,
this guy from Texas is an Irish Republican. Look at that. With a reggae influence. See you Friday, if not before, okay? God bless.
See ya.